Here we go again, the next cab on the rank. I tell you what, do we sleep? Do we nap? Do you? I mean, honestly, the amount of streams out there. So, welcome again at our Sunday tea time slot. We're going to have fun, I hope. We're going to be frank. We're going to be fulsome and forensic, and our review of the Interstellar Song Contest, episode 6 of Ncuti season 2. As RTD put it to Juno Dawson in that commission, that dodgy one, Die Hard meets Eurovision. Not a mix I expected in Doctor Who. Did it work? We might have to look into that. Anyway, we're the Sense Sphere, talking sense, making sense of all the nonsense, flying around our favourite show. So you're in the right place. If you want detail, debate, passion, fun, disagreement, but we respect each other, you're in the right place. This is your home. Make sure the notification's on. Give us a like. And even better, give us a subscribe or pass a word to a friend. I would be a very happy little Whovian if you did that. Well, as you can see, we did our rating show earlier, and some people out there will be going, oh, this is amazing. The big turnaround's happened. Doctor Who's on the up. It technically went up by 1 million, but I have the 5-minute breakdowns and I have even more details than I had earlier. So we'll have a look at that because, as I say, the devil is in the detail. There's rumours abound, aren't there, that we're going to have everybody and the kitchen sink in the finale, that the Daleks might return. And of course, I just, please don't ruin my memories of the Daleks. Please don't. Do we need them? I would have thought it's great to have an arc that focuses on one or two things only rather than possibly Omega, possibly Daleks, Rani, Susan. I mean, just Valyard, stop it. Honestly, it's ruining that kind of clarity that we used to have when you just tuned into Doctor Who. And of course, with Susan definitely appearing in that last episode, and maybe with a bigger part to come, it just makes you think of that lovely blurring of the Daleks and some of our better stars in the past. Caroline Ford, Verity Lambert there, Roberta Turvey. Come on. This was a better time. Did you see this in Australia? It was on the news. And somebody obviously was a Doctor Who fan. So as you're driving along the motorway, they've actually doctored all that kind of structure into a Dalek. There you go. I thought that was quite cute, that. It's got the baubles on it. It's got, brilliant. That is a good sized Dalek. It's bigger than that the dodgy Matt Smith ones, isn't it? The Jelly Baby ones. So what shocks are in store for us in the final 2 episodes? I mean, look at the faces on them when they've read the script. They're going, we've been sacked. We're not allowed in it. Is Belinda Susan? Is the Doctor Belinda? Millie's going, am I allowed any more parts because you two took them off? What's going on in the finale? Well, of course, the rumours abound. Omega was mentioned in umpteen leaks. And of course, I didn't even like this iteration of Omega in Arc of Infinity. The last thing I want now is another version of him. Overdone. RTD, go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that you've got some bloody talent. Why are you going backwards? Stop it. And what I'm fascinated by is, the news on Friday, the Daily Mirror saying that Doctor Who will be back in probably 2027. Okay, I'm not a killjoy. I did a stream about that, you know me. But it would be so easy for the BBC just to confirm there is a season 3. They tell us that RTD's done all the season 3 and season 4 scripts, and they're finalised just about. So just confirm. Simple. What? It's harder not to confirm. And look at these programmes that have been given the green light already. This City is Ours, Gladiators, Michael McIntyre's Big Show, his Big Wheel, a Call the Midwife feature-length film, a Call the Midwife prequel set during the war. All have had the green light. Meanwhile, Doctor Who has had scripts being produced all the time. You know how prolific RTD is. I mean, my concern is he apparently has written all these scripts for 4 series of Doctor Who in a matter of a couple of years. And he's done a Channel 4 drama. Gives a lot away, doesn't it, about quality. And did you see this? It's on tomorrow, the 19th of May, on radio, BBC Radio. Doctor Who, Time and Space for Everyone. Dr. Emily Garside explores the cultural significance of Doctor Who for LGBTQIA+ fans in Wales and across the world. Is Wales in the world? Why have they made that distinction? We hear from the fans, the production team, and stars of the show to understand what this era of the show has represented and why it still matters now. This isn't just a sci-fi success story. You're pushing that one. It's a Welsh success story, and it's full of pride. Oh, I noticed that. A Golden Cat Studios production for BBC Radio Wales. Hey, it was only a couple of weeks ago, me and John were talking about the Doctor Who Monthly, and of course, the LGBTQ agenda being thrown in there, revising the Doctor Who programme. And look at it again. What's this relevance to do this? Doctor Who was just a great escapist programme. It didn't do agendas like this, and it certainly didn't do over-representation. And I have to say, the programme we're about to talk about tonight, the Interstellar Song Contest, was heavy in certain representation, wasn't it? And I don't think it helped it necessarily. So just to wrap up before I bring the panel on, my detoxer, Cybermat Strikes. Now, remember, in Australia, they have to subscribe to Disney. And he said to me, texted me first, he said, I'm off. The show hates us. I've had enough. And that was after last week's episode. So it's a nostalgic chat and it's a frank chat if you want to tune in and just see what he says there, because he has had to make the proper disconnection of cancelling his subscription. He can't watch Doctor Who if he wants to, just like when John cancelled his subscription for Doctor Who Monthly. It is an actual move. Of course, on Friday, there are other rivals out there for the RTD throne if the BBC wants to just kind of give it a shout out. And of course, we did our Who Night last night when we stay up late on my birthday, you know, why not? And go over the culls of what has just happened. So just to remind you, everything we're doing on the Interstellar Song Contest full and frank review tonight. We've got the burning issues, the Tombstone Totaliser, ratings watcher. We've got the lot. And of course, the Tombstone Totaliser at the moment, as you can see, season 1, the top story was Legend of Ruby Sunday with 79. Hold that figure in your head. And then, of course, so far this year, the highest rated one was The Well with 101. And in last place was, am I right there? The Story in the Engine. There you go. So I think it's time, isn't it? Just about to get the panel on. But just to remind you, I was chuffed to death last night when I played my Broke Hack Bingo, because with that sci-fi scorecard, I nearly got a complete card. I absolutely did. That Juno Dawson and RTD nearly ticked off every single trope that this era's been about. Disappointed to see we didn't have a costume change. Shock horror. The Doctor isn't being weak or indecisive. You could argue he's gone a bit blooming sadistic. Timey-wimey, not really. So there you go. The Broke Hack Bingo. They nearly give us a complete set. Is that good or is that bad? I'm not too sure. Right. I've got tired panelists. I've got under the weather panelists. I've got hard-worked panelists. I've got hungover panelists. And I'm going to play the music because they always ask for the music. So I'm going to be absolutely rollicked by them in a minute. But anyway, we're going to get the panelists on. So here we go. John, is he at the ready? Has he been warming up his he's giving me the thumbs up, so he's ready. Okay, here we go then. Let's get the panel on to review the Interstellar Song Contest. Here he comes. You wouldn't think he's knackered. There you go. And where is she? She is. Here's Michelle. He's back. Rachel is
I am here.
He is here, but she's under the weather, so we're going to look after her.
Yeah, I came down a bit funny, but I'm here. I'm vegan.
And here's Paul.
Ah, stop it!
Oh my God! Right, let's right. Thanks for that, everybody.
Wow. Down and dirty puppets. Wow.
Well, I know that we're getting naughty. Then I think
Shocking behaviour.
they'll love each other. They'll love each other. Reese Roder is already being very generous. Thank you, Reese Roder. James, RTD's only talent is to repackage other people's. Well, we will soon find out what the panel think of all this lot. So yes, here we go. So let's have a look. What was I just going to show you then? Let me just get myself in order. This is what I mean. You get so knackered after dancing around. You can't keep up with what you're supposed to be doing, can you?
I wonder, are the threads going to identify who's the tired one, who's the ill one, who's the hungover one? Or there may be clues throughout.
Yes.
Or maybe it's all the same person.
So no, Rachel is here, as you can hear. We're looking after her as much as we can from a distance.
Yes, we're ministering to her needs.
She's a bit like Connie Booth in Fawlty Towers. You know, when Sybil's ill and she's in the back. It's going to be a bit like that, I think. So anyway, we do normally start with something meaty, and I think you've all been dying to talk about this, and it is the burning issue. So here we go. Yes, burning issues. Plenty of burning issues to discuss. So I'm not going to say any more. People have heard my opinion so far, and I'm going to work my way into this show. So, John, welcome. I've seen your burning issues. Off you go.
Yeah. Oh, crikey. Throughout the entirety of this season, as we've been reviewing it, I've complained quite a lot about our lead, Mr. Gatwa, Mr. Gatwa, perhaps you prefer, I don't know, about how he's just not cutting the mustard as the Doctor. I don't think he's got the acting chops to do that, to be frank. I was a fan initially, let him grow into it. But something has happened this time in terms of last night's episode, because there's a door slamming behind me. It's not my husband coming out again. This character he's playing simply isn't the Doctor. What he did last night, what that character was made to do, is torture an individual and seemingly getting pleasure from it. Well, he seemingly did get pleasure from it. Being very explicit on the revenge he would exact on that person throughout the episode, and then the torture scene in particular, proves to me that unless they've got a card up their sleeve about why the Doctor's acting like this, then this production team have completely and utterly lost the plot. We've been saying for weeks this isn't Doctor Who. This certainly isn't the character of the Doctor in this iteration of Doctor Who. I don't know who he's playing, and I don't know why they're doing it, but they have completely and utterly trashed this beloved character of all of us.
Yeah, I mean, if I can bring in Rachel for a second, I will, because she defends Colin Baker, as we all do, really, and she loves Sixth Doctor. And the Sixth Doctor was ambushed by, of course, the costume, and he was ambushed by the twin dilemma when he strangled Perry. Not a good start.
Yeah, no, he didn't have a great start, did he? And you know, that seems less problematic now when we've got something like the torture scene. Funny enough, John, my burning issue is also the torture scene as well, which is why I'm sure that Brendan brought me in here. And like when you compare to what Colin Baker had to do with the torturing and the throttling of Perry, it was a bit more in line with what was going on because it was a shaky regeneration. He just regenerated. But here, what we had today, that is not the character. Yesterday, I mean, that's not the character of the Doctor. No, I don't know what show Juno Dawson was watching as a child, but I certainly didn't watched that. I don't really recall all that much, like anything where he's specifically tortured. Maybe one was the Runaway Bride, but that was it. But he does stop, and
I
maybe that's it. I can't remember anything else though.
I mean, I counted, because I broke it down. It's a minute. It's a minute of
It's quite a
torture.
long time.
Yeah.
And
this-
It's sadism. It's absolutely sadism. This isn't
Yes.
the doctor just inflicting revenge, if you like, or getting
Mm.
particularly angry. This is sadistic. Excuse me, I go to space. Sorry, I was so excited.
Well, as Paul Clifton says here, if I just bring it up on the big screen here, because it was just it's on point about where some people stand on this. Whether gleefully reducing us to sperm and thrown in the trash, telling us we'll die age 49, or sadistically torturing us, we have the first ever outright racist thug for a doctor who hates. I mean, it just goes on. Some people are so angry about this because of what this series has done. Now, as John quite rightly said, and a lot of Doctor Who fans are hoping for in a way, oh, are we going to explore the Valeyard possibility arc? The trouble is, a casual viewer will go, what the hell is this? And it's not explained, and that's kind of fan fiction. Fan fiction should stay as fan fiction, not on a...
And if we did go down the Valeyard route, is that something that we would associate with the Valeyard?
I know, and he's supposed to be a blooming hero, for God's sake. And I thought in these dark times he wanted an emotional doctor, not
and a doctor who's a hero, and this is not a hero.
No, and wasn't the whole thing about this doctor, the reason why we introduced this silly concept of bi-generation, was this was a doctor no longer with issues. He was basically telling Tennant, I got it covered, new start, fresh start, clean slate. And now we've got a crybaby doctor, we've got a sadistic doctor. And more to the point as well, Brendan, also part of this, my burning issue was what appears to be a promiscuous doctor who quite happily would insert himself between a married couple and actively encourage them to flirt with him. That is the doctor.
Yeah. Well, here's the transcript, and then I'll bring Michelle in. The last of the Time Lords, he says to Kid, you did all of this, and now you're threatening 3 trillion people, except I'm here, telling you no. So Kid says, I'll purge the airlocks and clear the whole station. And then the Doctor, and do you know what I'm going to do? I will survive, and I will find you, and you can run and hide and whimper all you like. But I will find you, because you have put ice in my heart, darling. You put it there, so I will cast your body out into the void, and I will stand and watch you freeze to death. That's just his warm-up act. And then he says, a hologram can hurt. How many people did you want to kill? 3 trillion? How about we try this 3 trillion times? I mean, bullying, cruelty, sadism, butchery. And I have to say, there is no character arc I will allow to have that being called Doctor Who, because 1 minute the RTD says I want 6-year-olds watching, and as an ex-teacher, John as an ex-teacher, excuse me, there is no excuse ever for you doing that to another human being. Couldn't give a damn.
Only 2 stories ago was threatening a young the Conrad character, how horribly he died for basically just telling the truths on the internet. Nuts.
I mean, Michelle, at near the end, he apologized in a way to Belinda, and he said, oh, it's just I'm triggered at the thought of 3 trillion people being killed. That's why I did what I did. No excuse, Michelle.
Oh, and the companion was like, okay, that's fine, Doctor. Don't do that again. Whatever happened to it, I think back to 12, never be cowardly, never be cruel.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is saying, well, ever I don't like you, or you're different, or because also don't forget, he killing 3 trillion people, is bad. But he hadn't even carried out his plan yet. He hadn't even killed anybody yet. Because they had the whole MacGuffin of everybody lives at the end.
I know.
And so he's threatening to do it. And let's go back to the fact that this is a kid. His name is Kid because his mother didn't even have a chance to name him before being killed. and that he is also has a thing called the G word, genocide committed against his peoples, and then he's being tortured.
He obviously has issues. You know,
Of
he
course,
has.
he has issues. I mean, and it goes back to mental illness.
Sorry.
Clearly, kid has mental issues, mental health issues. He is traumatized from war. Now, terrorism, of course, is bad. But this whole episode is just so messed up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to agree entirely with Michelle there, because this is a doctor who that's the word, a bullying sadist. You know, he's picked on this, and interestingly, and I don't like it down this rabbit hole, but it's interesting that the people he seems to particularly dislike are young white men, in particular, when everybody else seems to be forgiven.
All seeing else, a straight white man, because he's
Mm-hmm.
locking horns with the girl, and Conrad is maybe a straight white man. We don't know. I mean, there's some discussions that there may have been a love triangle with the doctor that was edited out. I mean, I've heard that.
There's still a finale to come. I'll bring Paul in because he's been waiting patiently. So, Paul, you can see we're pretty charged up about this presentation of the Doctor as a burning issue. Where do you stand on this?
Well, in his time, the Doctor's been a thief, a multiple murderer, a mischief maker, and a torturer. So there's a wealth of context for this Doctor to behave that way. I don't have a problem with it. I think there's a duality here. On the one hand, there's what we would like the Doctor to be, what comforts us regarding what the Doctor is, how we see him, how we see him as a champion of virtuous causes. But then there's the reality in the lore, in the history of the show, which has been diligently constructed. There's been examples of Colin Baker, who I liked his tenure. He not only killed 2 people, but he was quite gleefully quipping about it. Eccleston gleefully and with gusto tortured a Dalek, and this gives some plausibility to him behaving like this. There's also the arc about the Valeyard. One day, these dark distillations within him will culminate and manifest as him being the Valeyard. But regardless of whether they do or they don't, my issue is that there is a wealth of context for him to behave like this. I don't enjoy torture or anything like that, but I like the direction in which they've taken him. I thought he performed it with aplomb, and it was compelling.
I think I'm just coming from, we were brought up with the Mary Whitehouse criticisms. You can't show a split second of the Doctor being drowned underwater and Deadly Assassin. 1 second was too much, because some could argue Mary Whitehouse was kind of half right, saying the kids have to wait a week and there's no closure. Your hero isn't saved. Now we have a 60 seconds of torture, and there may be an arc, Paul, and there may be context that we can understand as fans. But I thought the BBC and any responsible media producer had to be thinking, when you go to bed that night, since this is a family show, will the kids see closure for somebody being bad?
I don't think you can have it both ways. If you want a breadth applied to how a character is explored, then sometimes you have to take the bad elements with the good ones. Just to answer Michelle's point about the guys falling into the acid bath, he still made a quip when he knew that there had been a death. He wasn't remorseful. He wasn't sorrowful about the death. He chose to make a quip. I think he said something like, "I won't join you." So that's a callous attitude to death. And I reject the idea that this isn't upheld by what I said.
I struggle, John, to make a this is why we've got a panel like this, but I struggle to see a parallel between that moment. It was almost like Roger Moore doing his blooming James Bond jokes when people died.
Yeah,
I'm just justifying it, but 2 people in an acid bath, yes, wasn't the best moment for the 6th Doctor. But the parallel with him saying, "I'm going to taser you 3 trillion times."
I disagree with Paul. He mentions quite rightly occasions in the past where the Doctor has not behaved properly, very improperly. And that happened. Strange, and the Eccleston Dalek thing, I buy. This was a very tortured individual. We knew there was all and there was an ark being built there with the Doctor and the Time War, and this him being damaged goods. The whole thing with Baker, Colin Baker, and the acid bath scene with Eric Sayward really badly managing, script editing the show at that time, and the show paid the price for that because mid-season it was cancelled effectively and then put on hiatus afterwards. This representation of the Doctor in combination with him choosing who he dislikes, he's not treating people similarly across the board here. He's picking and choosing who he hates and dislikes over others. But that particular representation last night, I thought in my head as I watched things, I don't recognise this character anymore because the character I know and love and grew up with wouldn't have enjoyed doing that. And this man looked as though he was enjoying it. And Brenda's quite right, I think. At the end of that, there was no comeback. There was no fixing it. The Doctor admitting he was wrong. It was all done very flippantly, and over and done with and that, because I think that's where this Doctor is now. And that's very sad, because I don't think children need heroes. And this isn't a hero. This is what he's portraying as a damaged individual. Doctor Who's a heroic show. It's an entertaining show. You can have little side issues along the way as well, but this is just, we were promised a clean slate Doctor, and what we're getting is a very tortured individual.
And we had RTD saying that in these dark times, he wants people to tune into Doctor Who as a safe space. Yeah. Now, I really, really, truly would say parents would have much more of an issue with what happened in those 60 seconds than happened regarding a pronoun debate for Starbeast. I think there's a level where you go, hold on a minute. Now, I've been arguing, Paul, for a darker Doctor Who. I want a darker tone. But even within a darker tone, your hero has to come through. If he has a wobble, if he has a moment, you have to see him in the end resolve the situation and be one of the goodies. And although we will maybe enjoy the character arc over 8 episodes, we're fans. But other viewers may not see that, and neither will a kid who isn't in charge of the channel they watch. And I'm concerned that in a family drama set up by Sydney Newman, who wanted to educate kids and inculcate certain moral values, we've now got experimentation by people who actually are bored with the Doctor's character and are just trying to do their own stuff.
It's not a valid argument. What about the things that James Bond does? James Bond is sometimes cruel to people who he vanquishes. Kids love James Bond. I think it's all part of fantasy.
It's all part of fantasy. But James Bond is not pitched at kids. This was
kids watch it, though. I think you're being a little disingenuous, Brendan. Kids watch.
No. I'm not being disingenuous. I'm being historical. I'm quoting Sydney Newman. No. Well, let me finish. Sydney Newman.
Well, you asked me a question. I just sort of decided to answer.
Yeah, no, but you said. Yeah, but remember, you said what I said was invalid. That's always a dangerous part of the argument. I was just quoting. Well, you're saying it's invalid. I'm just quoting Sydney Newman. As a fan to a fan, I'm just quoting the person who originated the series.
Okay.
So it's a bit valid because he's a man who brought up the whole thing. It is meant to be educational. It is meant to focus on kids. Remember, it was meant to be the bridge between Jukebox Jury and Grandstand. That wasn't meant to be James Bond time.
No, agreed. But that was then. The show has evolved. And story arcs have been placed, and the Doctor's character has been changed. And there are examples dating right back to the first story, where he would have, for no good reason, stove in somebody's skull. So there is a provenance to this. There is a provenance to the Doctor being a murderer. And sometimes when he murders, he does it gleefully and makes jokes. So when there's a wealth of context for things, when the show's history is littered with such, then I have no problem with a writer, even a writer like Juno Dawson, seizing upon that and developing it, especially if it's done well. And I feel that it was.
Well, I'm trying to think what's done well about it when it's unresolved. We've got a broken Doctor, an angry Doctor, and kids go to bed not seeing resolution there. I'm not happy about that. Equally,
the series hasn't finished yet, has it?
But the kid goes to bed nonetheless. Who said the kid's going to see closure?
Well, that's not something that a foremost consideration of mine.
I have had enough of Doctor Who not finishing stories off per episode. It's about time they resolved it.
But in a case like this, I haven't. I'm quite happy about it.
Yeah, but how old are you? I'm talking about kids.
Yeah, I know you are. I understand what you're saying. Okay, I understand what you're saying. I don't think it's the big issue that you feel that it is. I don't
Well, that's
think that it is.
because, yeah, okay, I've only been in safeguarding for 30 years, but I
Well,
actually
I
do think
understand all that, Brendan. It's you're getting like Harriet Jones, where I feel now compelled to say, yes, I know you've been an English teacher, but the fact is that's not my concern. I want to see a good story
that's
told.
not your
I want to
concern.
I
My
want to
concern
see
might be
this.
different.
That's fine, by all means. So you say your concern, I'll say that it's not my concern. We can leave it there.
However, I will say that when you say there's provenance, that the Doctor has done various things that are out of kilter from
Murder, in fact.
from
Flat out murder is what
I
you're
will
talking about.
continue from an unearthly child onwards. I think there's a hell of a difference to someone. Right. If a kid in a playground punches somebody, that is different to a kid in a playground punching a kid for 10 minutes. That is very different.
Yes.
That's the point I'm making.
Okay. The point I'm making is it's not relevant because I like that darker side explored. And I don't like people gleefully torturing each other. But when a character that has been one way, but has shown glimpses of being other ways, suddenly focuses on being those other ways, I don't mind. I don't mind if it's detailed with a lengthy sort of excursion into such. I don't mind.
But
So what you
if
find
think,
problematic, I don't. That's what this amounts to.
well, no, it amounts to more than that because obviously it's supposed to be a family drama. It's not supposed to be on at 10 p.m. And I made the point about Deadly Assassin. Mary Whitehouse went mad about a 1 second freeze frame. Meanwhile, we have 60 seconds of torture, and it seems to be, well, that's okay because there's provenance.
What about Eccleston torturing the Dalek? What
Yeah,
about
hold on. Just hear a different vote because I don't think that you are going to get a meeting of minds here. My view on this is last night, and this is my opinion, I saw something in that character I have not seen before. Yes, there is a history of the Doctor killing people, being responsible for the deaths of people, sometimes through deliberate, sometimes through negligence, whatever. But yes, there is all that history there. But last night, I saw a character trait in the Doctor I've never witnessed before. And this in combination with a whole lot of other stuff that's going on with this character in terms of his over-sexualized performances, his ability, to be more interested in what he's wearing than what's going on around him.
Fair point.
It made me think that they have reinvented this character and they might as well have called it something different.
There's certainly parts about Gatwa's performance that I don't like. When I feel that he's playing the Doctor well, when he says things like babes and darling and all that, it recedes very much into the background. It doesn't bother me as much. When I feel that he's giving a good performance, and I feel in large part this season he has given a very good performance, then it doesn't matter as much to me. It becomes a bagatelle as far as I'm concerned, all of his mannerisms. But I do agree with you, though. There are a lot of things about this Doctor that we've had to contend with and try to reconcile. So that I do agree with that.
Garbage here. Doctor Who was meant to be educational and is a hero. James Bond arrests or sometimes murders criminals while sleeping with women. James Bond is done in a real world. Doctor Who is sci-fi. He makes that distinction. Where do you stand on this, Michelle?
I'm not saying that they are the same. What I'm saying is that children have access to them both, so they're exposed to the frailties that you've discussed in both cases. That's what I meant.
I'm just concerned that parents found pronouns an excuse not to show kids Doctor Who. 60 minutes of torture might even give them more. Michelle, where do you stand if we're going to conclude on the Doctor?
I don't like it. I just, it doesn't feel like the Doctor to me. I remember I was in the car yesterday with my mom, and she's asking me about the episode before we had watched it, and I says, well, the Doctor tortures somebody, and she scrunches up her face and goes, that's not the Doctor. Mm-hmm. And I watched that, and I'm like, that's not the Doctor.
Yeah. Rachel, you've been listening quietly there. Where do you stand on this overall?
For me personally, it's not the Doctor doing that. I think to me it comes across as more horrific because it's another human, so to speak. I'm guessing he's a Hellion, isn't he? But it's a humanoid. Yeah. So it's more relatable, more personable, and that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Very dark.
It was very dark. I want a darker tone to the Doctor Who program, but within that there needs to be parameters, I thought. But you know, there is obviously an arc going on here because he keeps going on about he has ice in his heart. So there's something going on.
Mm.
The apology kind of to Belinda is leading somewhere, clearly. It's just my concern that with the obsession with arcs, each episode still needs to have a beginning, middle, end of your character arc for a hero. And I didn't think that was played out very well. And there is a concern that he seems to be so triggered by Conrad Clark, who was spreading conspiracy theories, but actually didn't do any physical damage to anybody.
Yeah.
But, you know, somebody who, but he's happy to do physical damage to somebody else. It's a very strange set of moral codes. And of course, I couldn't help but unsee, you know, I can't unsee this. This is Luke Skywalker being tortured in Star Wars.
Yeah, and remember, it was only last week when the barber, who just happens to be a Nigerian, is forgiven and given a whole fresh start by this doctor. Whereas Conrad was told he was going to die horribly in prison, and this man could have been very near tortured to death. Double standards from this doctor.
Yeah. John Gore here says, I'll tell you now, if Tom Baker tortured anyone back in 1975, my folks would have changed the channel and my Doctor Who journey would have been over there and then. Paul Holgate, Luke Skywalker and Han Solo kill people, but they never torture them. Likewise, the Doctor, if he takes a life, it's out of necessity. I think the issue is, Paul, it's divisive, this, for Doctor Who. This is the thing.
Perhaps, but that in and of itself, that's not a problem for me. If people are of different minds about a show, I think it can sometimes engender the show having renewed interest. And I think that's what might happen here. I'm not suggesting for a moment that this era is redeemable. I've said since before it started that it isn't. But if they take things in interesting directions, and if it's performed well, then that can appeal to me. And that's what's happened. That's what's happened here.
Well, look at
this arc. If it is an arc, it appeals to me.
Well, look at this, Paul. We've got a Mackham getting in between two Borough. I stand in the middle of two Borough fans. Better writing around Belinda. No, nothing that's not him would have helped. Give viewers a chance to see the story arc if that's what Artie's doing. It was clumsy, you know. I mean, so he's kind of halfway there. So that was one burning issue, John. I think we've covered that one. But the next one. Yeah, the next one is, of course, RTD told us Ncuti always said he wanted to face the Rani. So after 32 years, she's back. It's an honor to work with Archie Panjabi. I've been a fan for years, and what a joy to see her twinned with Anita Dobson. It's the greatest threat the Doctor's ever faced since last week. And there are even more villains to come. And of course, we had the bi-generation moment that's been threatened for ages. I was hoping he wouldn't go there, but he decided to. So, you know, like buses, they all come at once. So she has ice. He got ice in his heart. She got ice on the brain. Lethal for a time lady. So, you know, although the Rani breaking her characterization, you remember in the Mark of the Rani, she wasn't into the ego trips of the Master and the Doctor.
Yeah. No, she wasn't. I agree. Yeah. This is my point. She was pragmatic, scientific. Her sociopathy, if it was that, stemmed from her interest in science, her need to experiment. And sometimes she needed to experiment dispassionately on other living beings. And she was objective, but she cared nothing for them. And that's what made her so compelling. Each of the renegade Time Lords was given their own specific profile in the classic era. And it was done very well. And they were distinct. And when they came together occasionally, it was for the better, because that distinction led to a compulsion when you watched them interact. But this wasn't the Rani. And what Davies has done, he's latched onto what Moffat ill-advisedly did with the whole Missy thing. He's had this woman manifest at the end of episodes or interact with characters supposedly on an entirely enigmatic basis, but it wasn't any such thing. I didn't care enough. It was nice to see Anita Dobson again. It's always nice to see her. I've liked her. She's a national treasure, but wherever it was going was always going to be unprepossessing. And this was completely vile to me. She was completely subsumed by another actor of color, And she was also spoken down to for some reason as a means of one race subjugating the other. That's all I can see. It reminded me half my family are from India, and I've been over there a few times and I've interacted with them, and we get on quite well, even though I don't really sort of acknowledge my Indian heritage that much. But what I noticed over there is they have a caste system, and they employ people to sort of live in the house from the lower castes and essentially act as a house servant. And the way that Punjabi spoke to Dobson's character reminded me very much of how they spoke to the houseboy that I've seen on several occasions when I visited there. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it one little bit.
And again, this is another thing I was trying to understand. The new Rani was given the definitive article nonsense again, that we had the first Doctor. And of course, the first Doctor said that because he was the first Doctor.
Yeah.
This Rani is not the first Rani. So what rubbish is this about? And I agree totally, Paul, with you regarding why did we have to go there? We had the first bi-generation, the 14th Doctor, who happened to be white, is mentally frail, needs rehab, is a broken man. And now we get a bi-generation, and again, there's a kind of racial angle possibly that can be taken here, which I think is at least unfortunate. I don't understand this. Our name is the Rani, although she's become a Rani, and I'm the definitive. Well, what the hell is this, John?
She's being supplanted in Sorry, I'll be quick, honestly. She's being supplanted in the same way as they attempted to supplant Hartnell with Joe Martin. That's what's happening here. It's just a parallel to that.
So this is almost... John. So this is the third time, John. I mean, John, I don't want to go down the... You said the same. You don't want to go down this angle, but it's problematic.
It is, yeah. And the reason why we don't want to, because people tend to think we have issues rather than the other ones with issues. But if it was done the other way around, that's what you think. You know, if an actor of colour was subjugated and taken over by a white actor, you know, what it would be done with the Doctor now with the Rani, then there would be problems. They would say, "No, we can't do that. You know, you can't have Davros anymore because he's in a wheelchair." But there is an absolute set of double standards here with this production team in terms of what they think to do. It's all, I understand it's the name DEI as they see it, and they're trying to be, we talked last week about hyper liberal overreach and all the rest of it. But now, as far as I'm concerned, Anita Dobson is a fantastic actress. Paul's right, she's a national treasure. And you watch, there she is there, reclaiming the Queen Vic from the Rani when she took it over in 1993 as Kate O'Mara. But nonetheless, she's not given the chance to put on those evil acting chops we've been promised and teased with over the last few episodes. She's immediately gone into the Uriah Heep mode and going to play a lackey to this character. And I've got a sneaking suspicion that she will have some redemption and work, ultimately Missy style, with the Doctor in the finale.
How predictable, Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the bi-generation was supposed to be a myth and rarely happened. I mean, it's a legend, and now we have it happen twice. And you also notice that the Ronnies kept most of their clothes on this time.
Yes. Well,
to my lasting relief, I might add.
I've enjoyed. But the only thing I really, really enjoy is the Mrs. Flood cameo. So I was really looking forward to seeing her, you know, being more of the evil character. I think this new Ronnie was it Archie Punjab. I think she has an interesting chance of being. I kind of like the campiness of how she came out last night, of being I'm the Ronnie and was kind of prancing around a bit. I enjoyed that camp element of it. So I kind of look forward. Probably will be the best parts of next two episodes. But I'm just so bored with the bi-regeneration.
Yeah.
And also, can you talk about how clunky the reveal was? That they came out in front of the nurse and the husband. You know how boring, you know, just that was.
Yeah.
That made absolutely no sense. It was like the tack on at the end of like the R.I.P. Doctor Who fans.
Yeah. Brendan, you mentioned in that quote that Russell Davies mentioned that Ncuti wanted to face the Rani. I find that very hard to believe that Ncuti Gatwa had a memory of let's face facts, the Rani only ever appeared twice in Doctor Who and towards the end of its run. So and certainly when the programme really wasn't in, if you like, the national zeitgeist anymore. So I find that hard to believe, to be honest with you. It may well be true. I don't see why he tells a lie, but it just seems an odd choice. We're not get Daleks, we're not get Cybermen, but he wants the Rani.
Ncuti was given a series of episodes and DVDs to watch by Russell T Davies, so the Rani may have been in there.
Yeah, I mean, it is all possible. But the Who pets are getting gleeful because somebody's shown some interest. So here we go. Oh, bless. So basically, thank you very much, Michael Nemo. Very, very, very nice of you. Hope you're well. With Davies' penchant for activist talking points like wheelchair-bound folks being evil, I'm surprised that the Master and Rani are Asian. Reminds me of the classic Trek Klingons or even Fu Manchu. The thing about the Rani is the Rani etymology is Indian, isn't it? So technically,
even means queen too.
He's queen, I think. He's queen.
Yeah.
So you could. It's a funny one, but you know, we were all brought up with Kate O'Mara as the original Rani, and now we get the Rani depicted as an Indian queen, so to speak. Really, I think this is where we're going with this. It's working on the etymology of the word, I think. So, you know, if you want to be a purist, that's maybe where it needs to be. But I don't know. Kate O'Mara was never Camps's Eye of Horus. Her delivery was thoroughly evil and manipulative and sarcastic. Although I must admit, Tam and Rani... Yeah, the shoulder back. But it was a bit camp in the TARDIS when she said, leave the man, it's the girl. Leave the girl, it's the man I want. You know, it's like...
that's been my motto for donkey's years.
So
she is as far camp as who should go. Okay, I like her. She's right at that knife's edge, and that is about as the Kate O'Mara is about as camp as the show should go.
Now, Rachel, I know this is it's a different way of you doing this, but where do you stand on the Rani?
Big mistake bringing her back. I was totally against it from the beginning. However, I will say that I think that they should have given Anita Dobson the time, the airtime to do what she can as the Rani and then have her regenerate. I'm fine with the casting choice of Archie. I think she delivered that line really well, and I think that she has the potential to be a good Rani. I'm fine with that. But yeah, I was against it. Now, talking about the bi-generation just quickly as well.
Yeah.
Out of the two, the Doctor or the Rani, the one that makes the most sense to perhaps do the bi-generation as part of one of her experiments is the Rani. That to me would make more sense than having it with the Doctor. But I just didn't want her back. I'm very protective of the Rani, but I think Archie has probably gone back and watched what Kate O'Mara did. I'm sure she'll be fine, but I think they're going to probably not Archie, but they're probably going to change her character in some way.
Yeah. I mean, Paul was right. Paul was on the money regarding she's just a scientist. She doesn't have interest in all this nonsense.
No. And RTD has said that she's going to be doing some kind of experiment, but really she does not have any interest in the Doctor. And that's what makes her so compelling. She, in the time in the Rani, she uses him for the one thing that she needs him for, and then she's like, yeah, do whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah. My concern in the end, and that's why I showed Derek Jacobi here for obvious reasons, which is that reveal was outstanding.
Yeah.
And clearly RTD was trying to do it again. Let's come on. It's the start of it.
But the thing was, like, even though I put myself into a state of denial, if you think about it, he planted the seed way too early, and he did the same with Sutek.
Yes.
So it's not clever writing at the end of the day.
No, and I ended up, I'm sorry, but I ended up feeling underwhelmed. That was basically the reveal. And like Michelle said, to two gay guys at the end of the day of an episode was like, what? And yet, as you were saying, and you've all been saying this really, is I wanted to see Anita Dobson in full flow, give her more than 2 sentences. When she was spying on the doctor, I was really into this. I loved this bit. And when at last she said the Vindicator stuff's all ready and primed and we're done now, I thought, right, the game's afoot. Here we go. And then they ruin her. And I'm thinking, a bit like Derek Jacobi, suddenly, bang, he's out. Now, you see...
Was there a scene at all of Mrs. Flood being taken up and frozen? We never got to see that bit. Because I was wondering during the course of the episode where she was.
Yeah, she seemed to look quite passive when she saw the...
We saw the Dugadoo guy floating around near the end when they're bringing down the other house. You see the Dugadoo in the back. I busted up laughing on that one.
I just think that was a bad directorial choice, that they should have had a scene of Mrs. Flood being taken and sucked up and frozen and what have you.
Well, the snag is the twice now she's looked passive. When Sutek was destroying the world last season, she just sat on the bed and turned to sand like everybody else. This time she's in the arena thinking, oh, well, I've done my Vindicator now. I'll watch the show because everything's ready. And then when the dome roof opened, she just looked and I thought, all right, you're not part of this. All right. So she's going to die again. So let's face it, if that tractor beam hadn't gone and got the Rani at the very end, Mrs. Flood, would she have been dead?
Yeah, she would. Yeah.
So, oh well, that's clever. She's a really good actor.
She would be the Rani on ice right next to Walt Disney.
Yeah, well, that's really good. Anyway, this is what they're going to look like next week in Rish World. Mrs. Flood has changed outfit. Now she now looks as though she's got her prison keys again. The Rani looks as though she's doing a version of Kate O'Mara's Time in the Rani outfit. And then you've got Conrad back out of prison and out of prison fatigues. There you go. So he does say, though, does our RTD, there she is, that's a different angle of her. But RTD does say that I'll come to Susan in a minute, that the unholy trinity has not been fully revealed. So when you see that shot of the three of them, don't assume that's the unholy trinity. He said the Rani counts as one, Conrad counts as one, and there's another one coming. Now,
that will be the kitchen sink.
Yes, 160 years in the future, as Rachel reminded me earlier from part of this thing. Rachel, have you got a theory there? Because obviously you've been thinking about this too.
Yeah, I mean, my theory was he left Susan in the future. So maybe it could be her, but she could also be locked up by the Rani as well. There is that possibility. It was just a couple of theories that I was throwing around. Because a lot of people seem to think that Susan is dead. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, so yeah, I mean, we're all fans. Who's happy to see Susan even appear again?
No, not me.
Me, definitely. I liked it.
I'm happy, but I've been manipulated.
Well, John, I remember being in the...
she came back in a better story.
Yeah, and that's where I would
be okay to bring her back for an anniversary. That would be like they did in the in the Five Doctors.
Mind
bring
you,
her back for an outlier. But everyone, okay. Notice her earrings are exactly the callback to her grandfather's ring in the first Doctor. Yeah. And I want those earrings.
The thing is, she wasn't served very well in the Five Doctors either, to be quite honest. She was given some really rubbish dialogue and action to do. Me and John queued at DWAS last year to actually meet Caroline Ford, didn't we?
I was going to bring my picture along today. Have I got a delay? I think I have, sorry. But I was going to bring my picture along, but I didn't. Yeah, and Sly Caroline kept that zipped because she was being asked. You and I sort of worked it out between ourselves. We virtually decided, yes, she was coming back. What I didn't expect was this sort of half-hearted, slipped in at a moment's notice thing. That should be much more of an end of an episode thing. I think that would have really have hit harder than what ultimately we got there. It's great to see her back, though. But as I say again, I feel manipulated by this era, that by, let's bring it back to Rani, having Susan involved, Sutek, the season before, the Elizabeth Stewarts, all of these things are there so that he can continue to sort of bait us, keep us involved, and throw us a few sweeties every now and again. But ultimately, we'll look back in this, as we did with Sutek, and say, I wish she'd been brought back by somebody better at writing Doctor Who.
There's a lot of issues here, Paul. Number one is RTD, as John said about the kitchen sink. We've got possibly Omega, possibly the Valyard, definitely the Rani. It looks like definitely Susan, maybe the Daleks. I mean, for God's sake, this is
Great.
one of them on their own would be a brilliant storyline.
I agree with that. It's too much, and it will have a diminishing effect. As soon as they're presented en masse, there'll be a diminishing effect, if there hasn't been already. But regarding Susan's insertion, I thought it was perfectly judged. And moreover, it happened at exactly the right moment for the Doctor. He needed some kind of intervention, and he got it, and she served that role perfectly. And it was good to see her again, of course. I didn't notice the earrings, so fair play to Michelle for that. Far more diligent than I. But
somebody else pointed that out, so I can't take credit on that. I just
okay, fair enough. Well,
but
I appreciate your honesty.
It's interesting though with the Susan thing. Some people are saying, Susan, look, she's in the TARDIS, so hello here. The other thing is, I saw one leak saying that she might have a telepathic link to Belinda. Now, if you watch the episode again, if you really force yourself to, when Belinda was getting upset saying he's out there and he's in space, then we cut to the Doctor, and the Doctor thought of Susan. There is a possibility in the editing that there's a hint that actually Belinda and Susan are maybe more than we think they are. Possible?
Yeah. I've heard that rumor that Susan and Belinda are one and the same.
I hope not. I fervently hope not.
That would be awful.
Fervently hope not.
It would work on the race card because he's doing that all the time, on the matching up all the time. But yes, look, the Susan was ill-served in the Five Doctors because there were too many things going on because that was on an anniversary special. Yeah, here, we could end up having the same disaster where Susan is lost. I mean, I think it's actually totally disrespectful that the Rani moment at the end really eclipses her.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
She is
the last surviving original cast member. I mean,
you can get rubbish dialogue like "I'm the definitive Rani" and all that stuff. She's the unearthly child.
And as I said, she's the last surviving original cast member. I mean,
it's a storyline in itself. So I'm disappointed in that. What about you, Rachel? I haven't brought you in on Susan.
I just wish that she'd been brought back in different circumstances. I don't think it was a good idea to bring her back in this one. I think another writer, perhaps with more experience in writing sci-fi, should have done it. Much the same with the Rani. And it does lessen the impact. You're absolutely right. And it is little tidbits. And I don't know. I think they need to just move on from that and start making new things. Going to get to the point where the original cast members are no longer with us. Well, Carol Ann Ford is the only remaining one, but they're getting on.
Yep. So yes, what's interesting, notice that dialogue, "Find me," and then of course, God help us if we have season 3. He's going to be finding Rogue. He's going to be finding. I mean, honestly, it just. Anyway, what was nice in Unleashed is bless her. I mean, John really hates my guts. He's got a voodoo doll because when I had the puppet with me, when I went to get the photograph, she talked to me for ages, John, didn't she, Carol Ann Ford?
Yeah, you kept me waiting, but she paid me a better compliment than she paid you because she couldn't believe that I was the age that I was. I was celebrating a significant birthday that year, and she said, "Oh, you don't look that age."
She just had her hand up Willie Stroker. So I mean, and
Oh,
he
wow.
looked. She did. I mean, Willie Stroker has had Carol Ann Ford's hand up him.
I bet
I
that
was
was a happy
there
day
to
for him.
I was there to witness that event.
Yep.
And can
Yes.
we also say how beautiful she looks for her age too? I mean, just absolute.
And it was lovely. I have to say, this is when the blurring of the edges. She thinks it was fan power that brought her back. I mean, bless her. She must have been so frustrated at seeing other people and fans bringing other people back, and then thinking, you don't want to touch base with the original, really? And I did think the Five Doctors. You had a falling over a rock, a plastic rock, stuck in the TARDIS with Turlo. That was a funny combo. So
What's
sad.
gonna happen? We're just gonna die. Thanks,
Yeah.
Turlo. You're always a sunshine to be with.
It's great to have Caroline back, because it may well be we're all getting older, and it may well be that this could be the last opportunity. Who knows? Who knows? I hate to say that, but it's true. However, I just don't think that Russell Davies is doing this for fan service. I think there will be a bigger agenda behind this. I think Paul's going to be disappointed, because I do think that Susan may well bi-generated or regenerated, or whatever the hell they're calling it now, connection now with Belinda. It's been quite heavily signposted now, and that would be something I would imagine he'd do. Perhaps also, because remember, he's creating a Hooniverse. The plan may well have been for Susan to have a spin-off, and that would require a younger Susan. Who knows? Who knows?
Yep. And of course, this should be there were so many moments. The TARDIS doors blowing in as they lands on May the 24th, 2025. So they're dead. But it won't be that, of course. So you think, oh God, there's so many things that this series kind of hands on.
But the undercut too, that was quite the cliffhanger. The TARDIS exploding, of course, and then the theme music comes crashing in, and in a couple of seconds, you're getting a comedy scene with Anita Dobson and those two guys. And they just keep undercutting the drama of this, so that you're not allowed to say wow. Not that I wanted to, but for those that did, and then we're on to the next thing. And you were quite right in talking about Utopia. That was how to do it. That end scene, how to do it. This just seemed a little bit half-assed to me. And I'd imagine the people watching this on iPlayer, ordinary viewers, not fans who perhaps knew something was coming as regard Mrs. Flood, may well have clicked off just before that happened, so they'll be unaware that it did.
Yeah. Well, I'll zoom on. Just to point out to everybody, I found this on the internet. I haven't spelt Sontarans like that, but this is RTD's climax to every season. The Daleks, the Cybermen, the Master, the Sontarans, the Time Lords, the Toymaker, the Sutek, Rani. It's like, dear me. I mean, this is laziness personified.
I don't think the Rani is the big bag of this. There's something more to come here. Being delivered too early. There's something more. He's
season two,
the big enemy. A big bag of tricks.
Sorry, the season 2, the big enemy, the fans.
Well, as Russell himself says, because he said a lot, next week, Wishworld. Enemies old and new unite as the Doctor faces the unholy trinity. This is only 2/3 of the trinity. The 2 Ranis count as one because I say so. The third is lying in wait exactly 160 years away, so stand by. This is the big one, part of a 2-part finale. The Pantheon is stirring. Old friends are helpless, and the whole of reality is in danger as we hurtle towards May the 24th in the Rani's most terrifying experiment yet. Right, there you go. Hopefully you'll sleep tonight. So that's that. Now, here's the 5-minute breakdowns, everybody. I've had an update from Gary Lee. Bless him. Gary Lee gave me the details earlier, just in time for my midday show, and he's given me further details. So if I just show you this on the big screen so everyone can get a read of it, the FA Cup in the final 15 minutes of that programme went from 3.84, of course, somebody won. Crystal Palace had won. So they lost 800,000 by the time the FA Cup final programme finished. But it was still handing a 3 million baton to Doctor who dropped it completely to 2.69 immediately. And if you really look at it, from the final bit of the FA Cup final, when it was 3.01, it dropped by 700,000 within 20 minutes. So Doctor Who, 700,000 plus the 300,000 who thought we are not staying on this channel now. You lose 1 million basically so quickly. So straight away, the FA Cup still give it the fill up. It dragged Doctor Who up a bit. And then you see the same issue with the Eurovision at the end. So Doctor Who comes to an end at 8 o'clock. And I managed to get 3.42 in that last 5 minutes because, of course, people were tuning in. And then at 8 o'clock, 5.2. And then before you know it, in only 20 minutes, it's gone up by 3.03 million. In other words, I can conclude, surely, statistically, that out of the 3 programs, Doctor Who was the non-event out of the 3.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And benefited from if you like, a blockbuster sandwich of the football and then Eurovision, in as much as television can do blockbusters these days. But yeah, you and I both know that all the shills and all those super Russell Davies fans will be saying, see, nothing to see here, we'll put on 1 million. And I'm quite happy not to analyse, as you've done here with the 5 minutes, Brendan, how Doctor Who lost viewers and people come in at the end to watch the next thing. So what's happening? People are actively avoiding watching this programme. And I wonder how many of that 2.69 or thereabouts who Doctor Who inherited from the football were actually watching it, or were they going to put the kettle on, having their dinners before the main event of Eurovision came on afterwards? Not quite a few, I would imagine, because this is non-event telly now, Doctor Who, unfortunately.
Yeah, and to be honest, it gets to 2.3 quite quickly. Between 7:25 and 7:45, it hits its nadir. I mean, Paul, this seems to be happening every time. I've done the Joy to the World breakdown, the Lucky Day breakdown. By the time Doctor Who's had 15 minutes on air, and I do think the plot this time, it got on with it faster. We had a bit of action faster. In fact, we'd had the Jeopardy in space and that whole death sequence of 100,000 people early doors. And yet we still seem to lose 700,000, 500,000 within 15 minutes.
Yeah, these kinds of things, it's good that you do these kinds of things because it illustrates the difference between the summary of a report and the actual detailed report itself. And it speaks to, I admire the barefaced cheek of this. Davies et al. Took a punt and it paid off. It was cynical and nobody is under the illusion that this is due to a resurgence of the appeal of this show. But he took a punt, he did it, and now he has a record of this number. So him being him, he'll undoubtedly use it for some sort of positive spin. But yeah, you're quite right. You're quite right, Brendan, about the ratings. There's only one way to judge them.
But isn't that a sign of the times that even if he does use it, we're now trumpeting 2.44 million?
Of course. They're in the gutter. They're in the gutter. They've been in the gutter since after the specials. And no amount, as you say, or as you suggest, no amount of spin is going to change that.
No.
Rachel, we do analysis of ratings all the time, but the pattern seems quite distinct to me.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by these ratings at all. I knew this was going to happen. It was going to go and start off pretty high, and then it was going to drop off and then increase again towards the end of it. It was predictable. And there'll be people singing from the rooftops saying, yeah, it's the best one. Yeah.
2.44 million is nothing to celebrate.
No, I know, but they will.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah. When I did the stream and analysed the Joy to the World statistics, where, of course, with Wallace and Gromit, it shot off 10 minutes after Doctor Who finished. And I got so many trolls saying, Brendan, what about this? And I'm thinking, but the bare facts are quite obvious that people actually are actively manoeuvring away from Doctor Who when it's actually on the channel. And then they find BBC One suddenly again afterwards. Right, okay. So there you go. I think it's miserable news. Remember, Doctor Who and the Space Babies got 2.6 million. So we're still in the bowels of trouble here. Now, you can see I've color-coded in red the lowest 2 points of the Doctor Who programme when it got 2.32 million. And that coincides with, if I go bigger again, with this part of the plot. As I was saying to Paul, there was a lot of action at the beginning, so you'd hope that was going to grab people. But by the 15-minute slot, when we went down to 2.32 million, the Doctor had already got back to the space station, and the nurse was reviving him, and he told the two men not to have a hug now, it's the wrong time and place. And then they were in a museum, and he mentioned going to Brighton Pride last year, and I just thought the action was over, and we were clearly getting a lot more representation of various things. And hello, people are tuning out. And remember what had just been on before, the FA Cup final, people watching football, men's football, suddenly watching all this nonsense about Brighton Pride and a museum of Eurovision type stuff. Ugh, boring. You know, it's naff. It's naff. And I just
like
thought,
a caricature of what they think gay people are. It's not like you're regular people. You all have different diverse interests. It's like, well, if you're this, you must be into this.
yeah. Now, Rachel, you get yourself sorted out. I know she's tried really hard. So, Rachel, with our blessing,
soon,
please
Rachel.
go
Get
and
well
look after
soon.
yourself.
Take care. Take care.
All right, thank you. You've got
Bye.
She's the hungover one.
Yeah, she's given us the scores, so everybody. I mean, you see, you know what people are like. Have you got her scores? Don't let her go. Yeah, we've got her scores.
Brendan, just on the point you're talking about
Yes.
the Doctor mentioning Pride in Brighton and the link with Eurovision. I get it's all part of the overall strategy of this production team. Is that the gayification of Doctor Who? This is just what they've decided to do. Why, I don't understand. I mean, I'm a gay man. I've always loved Doctor Who, but a lot of my other friends who are fans are straight. There's nothing particularly. There was nothing particular Doctor Who that being gay made me want to watch it all the more. It had nothing to do with it. I just liked Doctor Who. That was it. But there's an active strategy here. They've now made the Doctor.
But this is like a gay stereotype that if you are a gay person, you have to like glitter and rhinestones and the Eurovision, because I'm an American, I really don't get Eurovision. But
Eurovision technically is called Gay
Huh?
Christmas. Eurovision was. I'm a big Euro. I've been to Eurovision when it was in, of all places, the Ukraine. 20 years ago. I love Eurovision. Always loved Eurovision as well. And Eurovision towards the end of the 1990s was basically dying on its arse, and it just attracted a lot of gay fans, and that helped it. But again, like Doctor Who, it's become a delivery system for the message.
Everyone can like it because it looks like something my mom would like. To be honest, it's like
Yeah, and so what Doctor Who does, is buy into that Doctor Who, Eurovision gay, Doctor Who gay, and all the rest of it. And you're spot on, Michelle, when you mention this idea of associating gay people with glittery things and sparkly things
and going to only going to Pride.
It's a very lazy representation of what gay people are. A whole number of things, and I don't have a whole lot of street friends who are camper than me, who like glittery things a whole lot more than me, yada yada yada. But this is part of an agenda of this production team to make this what they would call wrongly queer-friendly program. We're not queer. We're not friendly.
When the couple or the couple, or we don't know whether they're married or not, when they argue, I mean, isn't that like the stereotypical how gay men portray to be arguing? I mean, I'm sure you and your partner are arguing a completely different way.
No, more than that, Michelle. What is really bad about that gets to me is that these two men are portrayed as if they're promiscuous, that they would sacrifice.
Yes, that they're forming the Doctor in front of their partner.
Their fidelity for the sake of a night in the town with the Doctor. That really bothered me, because that's playing into a stereotype.
I would do anything for you.
That's playing into a stereotype of gay men, which, if it was done by straight men about gay men, there would be uproar.
And mentioning Brighton Pride,
I didn't say it like that. I didn't say it like that. I'll be honest. I didn't say it like that. I felt that their adulation for him was born from the fact that he was literally, or not literally, but figuratively, a knight in shining armor. He came in,
No, it's highly
he
sexualized.
saved the day. Let me finish. I respect what you're saying, but let me finish. And I respect your insight into this as opposed to mine. I do. I really do. But let me just finish. I felt in much the same way as Rose's love for him was born from him being unlike anything she had ever encountered before. So I felt that the statements those two excellent characters, in my opinion, made were born from the same thing. I didn't see it as promiscuous. I didn't see it as them flirting or trying it on. I saw it as what I've just described. And I don't mean that I went looking for it. I mean that when I watched it, that's how it presented to me.
But that doesn't tie in with the way this Doctor has been presented over the last few episodes. And Rogue.
Well, in fairness, he wasn't flirting with any of them, was he?
Can I finish now?
Okay.
So the Doctor in Rogue was portrayed as putting what he saw as the pursuit of a sexual relationship over the safety of his companion. So there is history here about this Doctor being quite hedonistic, about loving his appearance, about thinking he is a hot person. We're already earlier this season talking about Belinda's mum whistling at his bum because he's that much up himself. So yeah, to my mind, there's enough evidence there to promote this version of the Doctor being said to be hot stuff, a sexualized and sexual object. That representation of those two gay characters, I didn't take that as knight in shining armor. That was absolutely about fancying the Doctor. I didn't. I'm saying fancying the Doctor, okay. And the fact was it was done. And if you look at the reaction one does with the other one, he's not cool with the fact that this happens. The other character pulls his husband up for saying this to the Doctor.
Yes, I agree with that. But that doesn't detract from the fact that the sentiment might be as I described. And also going back to what you said about Gatwa, I agree that generally speaking he is flirtatious, but there was a distinct and satisfying absence of that in yesterday's episode. So I don't think the two were actually being promiscuous. I believe it was the way that I saw it. We'll just have to agree to disagree.
Well,
I do respect your greater insight. I do respect your greater insight into the subject. I will say that.
I know mine, but other people around me felt exactly the same way about it.
No, that's. I can only tell you what I feel. Okay, I can only tell you what I think.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, Julie Coonan here. I mean, the threader responding. I'm sorry, Paul. I did. It was in your face, says Julie.
That's their business. Their opinion is no less valid than mine. Okay, it isn't.
No,
but I can only tell you what presented to me.
Yeah, I'm just giving Julie's opinion because
fine.
Try and bring the thread in now and again.
Okay.
The two gay guys became fanatics. Dark Lives Matters. Paul Holgate hinting that Rogue, that was so promiscuous and what was going on there.
I agree with that.
Tomboy Chick. I've yet to see a healthy relationship in modern Doctor Who between either straight or gay couples. We have Jacqueline slapping the Doctor. We have. I mean, God, it's tantamount to. And that's a joke. Hitting men is a joke. RTD has some really distorted views on what he should depict for family drama. Eye of Horus, J&T always said no hanky-panky in the TARDIS, and that's how it should be. A hero uncle travelling with an admiring companion, and actually being above the fray, being above all that froth. And I have to say, the Doctor did kind of go, no, to those two lads, none of that. But why was the dialogue put in, for God's sake? No need for it. Just no need for it.
And they were actually, beyond that, they were actually interesting characters. I care about the relationship. I was happy that they got back together again, and that they got to see each other. Because many times in relationships, you don't see what the other person does. So the one saw the husband being the nurse and caring for and being a good nurse, and then the other one saw him being with the holograms, and they both put their skill sets together and their geniuses together to create the recovery pods.
Well, what I wanted to just finish on before we get to what we predicted. So the bottom point of the Doctor Who episode on ratings was the red bit there, as I've already said. And then, of course, you're hoping it'll pull and retrieve back. But the amber bit is basically, we were bottom, bottom dwellers, really. Because, look, Susan flashback. Well, who understands who Susan is if you're a casual viewer? Then the Doctor being, I would argue, undoctorish in one of his speeches. Then the Hellion saying, look, you call me a monster, you get a monster because this is how you treat me. Then the other Hellion saying, basically a metaphor for the trans message, quite clearly, about hiding and, mutilating yourself. Then you talked about colonization and exploitation and the poppy honey. And then we had the triangulation nonsense. I have to say, if you were just a casual viewer, I was thinking this section wasn't exactly retrieving the situation, because they saw the LGBT agenda right at center. Then you got a bit of the politics. And I have to say, when we had Colony in Space and other things where they did mention these things, nuanced over several weeks. But the other thing is, everybody in Britain is so aware of this issue going on, and any story that does it needs to be very careful how they kind of seed it into a story, because people will just switch off. People are going, oh, here we go, Britain bashing again, oh, empire bashing again, oh, that bashing again. People have now got sick of this. It seems to be so tedious. And then we hit the torture bit. So basically, if this is supposed to be grabbing the viewers after the football, I mean, hello, as you said, John, RTD, that's what he wanted. That was his strategy. This is, I mean, I couldn't understand it. I thought all those football fans are going to watch the Doctor Who program that's very high camp. Really? And then, of course, it didn't get the Eurovision fans because a 3 million joined later on. It didn't get them. It was caught in between. So let's actually get to where we normally get, which is the predictions. So here we go. Our ratings game. Here we go. Okay, well, I might as well reveal all. And if I get there you go. We had Hugh on last week, of course, as well. So there's an extra one there. And I think Michelle, although she wasn't on, had sent me her prediction. So I said 1.8. Obviously, I remind ourselves it was 2.57. Rachel said 2 million. John, 1.55. Hugh said 1.75. You said 1.5, Michelle. But Paul nearly said 5.
Sad people.
5 sad people. But we actually said it should be 3, because actually, if he was thinking of the panel, 2 of them were going out. But yes. So actually, well done, Rachel, who's not here. She got closest. But basically, I did not, and none of us clearly thought it was going to bounce that much.
No, but did it really? How many people were actively sitting watching it, including those figures? I'd imagine they were dining, putting the kettle on, getting ready for Eurovision, whatever they were. So I think I won. Basically, what I'm saying, 1.55, and the number of people, which even I didn't watch it live. I wasn't there. I was out. Hugh and I were out having drinks. Yeah.
So, as you know, we are here to give scores. I do have Rachel's. I'll just say that one more time. So we've got the full panel of scores. We do our Tombstone Totaliser. Of course, that's how we rate things. Outstanding tends to be 9 to 10. Good is 7 to 8. And we go all the way down there. And we have 3 criteria that we judge on. And the first one, of course, is safeguarding of Doctor Who. So, John, first taxi on the rank there. Safeguarding of Who with the Interstellar Song Contest.
What do you think I'm going to say based on what I've said so far? Can you guess? How can it safeguard Doctor Who when the character isn't the Doctor? Funnily enough, this was a more traditional Doctor Who story. Doctor landing, something happening, Doctor having to fix all those little elements you need to have a Doctor Who story are there, but I can't point it for that, because the character in the midst of this is not the Doctor. It just isn't the Doctor. Uh-huh. And the deal breaker for me, maybe for good, was the torture scene and the threats to Kit. Doctor almost taking pleasure from the pain of another individual, and that's the difference. The Doctor has been negligent and done some odd things in the past, but I've never seen a Doctor look so pleased and involved in the torture he was meting out to another individual. So does this safeguard Doctor Who? Absolutely not, because it isn't the Doctor.
And yet it's a shame, Paul, because for nearly 30 minutes, I was quite in on this. I saw enough going on, and I'm just showing you some shots now. I think that one of the best sequences in the episode, and I wish they'd actually had a payoff with this. You had 100,000 people in jeopardy. I thought they were going to die. And I thought it was well directed. I thought it was so sad. I thought this was epic, Paul. And then you focus on Belinda showing the upset because you need to make us relate to it. And it was a shame. And that whole sequence with him freezing and disappearing. And I thought that was well done. And it's a shame that we seem to go quickly back to the space station and he was sorted out so quickly when I thought this was outstanding jeopardy. This was great, Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm probably not the best person to posit this to, because I enjoyed this right up until the nonsense with the Rani. I thought this was a good, solid episode. I enjoyed it. Not at any point did I feel it wasn't Doctor Who. I admit the torture scene was atypical and it was stark. And I'm not pretending for a moment that I took it in my stride, but I judged it in the context that I've already given in abundance. And I enjoyed this episode. I'm no fan of Juno Dawson. I think he's provocative, purposely provocative to certain communities. He's complete anathema. But my abiding impression of this episode is that he took it seriously. He put storytelling first and he put the fans first. And he told a good Doctor Who story. That's my abiding impression.
Well, that's what I mean. I love these images and I love this sequence. I was, you had expectations of the episode, and I was in on it. I was following it, and there were moments that, like I said, we've mentioned the Doctor bit, but I thought it didn't just give us a song contest, because let's face it, the action was going on with the terrorist, and I thought, no, this is working, and wow, look at this. This is Doctor Who on scale. I know that's green screen. I can live with that. It's not a problem to me. And so I was brought into this. Freddie Fox, he's no mug with the acting. He was fine. I suppose that he got a bit limited there. He was in one room, so to speak, and it was but yeah, okay, set that up nicely. He had a kind of a little bit of an arc there, or an origin of story. So I could see who the goodies were. I could see who the baddies were. It was all set up. There was a fair bit of action promised at the beginning. And I think it's on my criteria 3 is where my problem's going to be. Michelle, Doctor Who, was this classic Doctor Who to you?
Up until the torture part, yeah. I mean, there's real gravitas. I mean, I was a little bit queasy watching everybody get sucked up into the airlock, because let's just face it, we've had bad histories of bad things happening in music festivals. And so this kind of brought back some flashbacks to that. So that kind of made you like, oh my God, what's going to happen to them?
Yeah, well, I have to say, Jamie said this. He said, God, it's like the Manchester Arena, sadly. It's very...
Yeah, I mean, and we've also had things in the United States. It made me a little queasy watching them being sucked up and 100,000 being killed. I mean, there's something in India and Pakistan not too long ago was at a festival. I mean, it made me a little queasy and maybe in a good way, because it's like, oh, this is hitting me with the feels.
So, I mean, it was very dramatic. It was Doctor Who giving us that drama. It's just I was struggling with the tone in various parts of it. So Paul's obviously enjoyed most of that story, as he said. John, less so. Michelle, you're kind of less so as well.
Also, because we watched our hero do something very dark and on Doctor Who-ish.
Yeah, so I'll be very strict on this one, as in we've talked a lot about what I would say is criteria 1, so that's quite clear. So what I will do is we'll just get the totalizer going. So
give that guy some Tums. He needs it. He sounds like he's got some bad heartburn.
Or tunes. What scores did we give it this time? And do you agree with us? Let's go big on the thing there. So Paul give it 8, John 0, Michelle 4, Rachel have given it 2, and I give it 3. So basically, do you agree with that in the thread? I mean, where do you stand on this one? You can't agree with everybody because you go all the way from 8 all the way down to naught. You've got different kind of depictions there. So basically, on safeguarding of who, and you can see why people have explained why. So that makes sense to me from what we've heard. And of course, that gives us a grand total of 17 out of 50 for the first category. So we then move on to, obviously, I just mentioned a bit about the directing and the images and everything. So, John, again, on the effective use of production resources and how it comes across, because normally, John, you're normally talking about this Disney money. What you're going to talk about this week?
I think the money was a bit more apparent this week. I understand people are saying that this is probably the most expensive episode of Doctor Who that they've made. Perhaps that's true. I don't know. But I think the money certainly was up front. You could see that they'd spent a bit on this, and it had scale. It had scale. And I think it benefited from that scale. Other than that, I don't watch Doctor Who for fancy effects and big sets and all that stuff. That's not what Doctor Who's good at. So I've reflected on that in my scores for this, to say, well, quite impressive. CGI, good effects, all great. That's not what I wanted to come to Doctor Who for. Otherwise, I would have been a lifelong fan. So that's just a part, which, if you like, you can sit back and admire. Good to see the Disney money. But there was, as I say, there's some odd directorial choices. If I can switch it to that, I think you're absolutely, to make that end scene work with Mrs. Flood, whether you're watching the Mrs. Flood character, you had to have a scene of Mrs. Flood floating out in space, because she just seemed, after those initial scenes, she was forgotten about. And right at the end, when the music comes crashing in after the exploding TARDIS doors, I would imagine it's only fans and hardcore people are really following this thing. What's happened to Angie Watts? Where is she? And then they came in and do it. I would imagine most people will have forgotten all about that. So it needed a scene where you put back in the audience's head that this character has also suffered a fate akin to the Doctor's, and she will be one of the people who is resurrected at the end, and that lets you into your whole Ranny stuff at the end. So that was an odd choice for me, which didn't work. I thought, interestingly, although Rylan, I don't know what the guy's surname is, he did more than a cameo, but I thought Graham Norton's little bit at the end was very good. The way he delivered that to camera, I was very impressed by that. There was a certain steeliness and to that tone, which from a light entertainment presenter that Graham Norton is, came across. I know Graham Norton was originally an actor, so he's capable of doing that. But I thought that really was used really, really well. So I gave it a further point for that.
Yeah, so I understand that. Michelle, on this criteria?
Generally, I give it high up for some of the CGI. This one, I don't know, felt some flack, especially when I was looking at the extras. The extras didn't always have the best prosthetics, and I always was particularly thinking of from the New Earth with the cat ladies and how convincing that was. Yes. And then this time the co-host, and she's a cat, and her upper stuff is not moving at all. I mean, and why does she have a black eye or no eye at the end when everyone else is okay? I mean, everyone else, she's like, okay, I'm a pirate now, and last one eye, but everyone else is perfectly fine. It just kind of seemed a little cheap and plastic. And I know who Graham Norton is. I'm not a totally ignorant American, but that just was awful. That was like, I can't act. I am a hologram.
Oh, I like that bit. I really did.
Okay, it just okay. Maybe that's just my Americanism coming through. It just didn't really, we don't have we're not really big on late night comics right now, so it just was kind of and at the end when they have the reveal of how the Earth died, is like she says Earth, and then he just pops up info dumping. The Earth is destroyed.
Although it's a bit silenced in the library, where basically Donna Noble is no longer in the, that it had an element of that. I thought there's strange lines to deliver, and he did it in that kind of almost clinical but slightly upbeat way because it's a computer. I thought that worked.
Well, the funniest part where he goes, I should have signed off my life, my image for perpetuity. That was funny.
And of course, he knows that he was in Rose accidentally in Britain. He broke into the broadcast because his mic was still on from the previous show. So he's been in Doctor Who since 2005. Graham Norton.
He's part of canon, isn't he? He's part of canon. Inadvertently, he's part of canon, isn't he?
Yes,
he
He's a regular.
Yes, because it was when Rose, Michelle in America, when Rose was going through the basement, looking at the mannequins and looking for the bloke with the lottery. And then you heard Graham Norton's voice. And he said he could have sworn he could have done anything because he was just practicing. But anyway, Paul, effective use of production resources to you.
Yeah, there was a strange dichotomy between the impressive but not too lavish effects. Those effects reminded me of the 2005 reboot, where I felt they were a good addition, but they weren't too over the top. And at the other end of the dichotomy, there was the almost late 80s type costumes. Some of the costumes were frugal, to say the least. But I like that. It's a dichotomy. I should have said it's a dichotomy that I liked, because I could lean into both aspects of the new and the old show that I find pleasing. So I felt the production, everything in this production, the editing, the directing, the acting, I felt it all intrigued and convinced me. And it made me enjoy the story. Never once was I irritated by this story. I will say that in the second act, as it were, I felt the pace, as you've alluded to this, Brendan, I felt the pace did slow a little bit, but I was enjoying the dialogue. I did find the dialogue enjoyable. So it kind of compensated in that manner.
Yeah, I mean, I've given it a fair score for this one because I objectively, I'm thinking, well, I was brought up on Horns and Iron and everything, and there we get, you said it's going to be a universal song contest. It looked like it. We had a bit of space action, the space effect when everybody floated into space and then froze slowly. I loved all that. I suppose the one thing I didn't like at all, and it's just a little point, is that cryogenic chamber just seems so cheap and clunky.
That too. That was more like, all those stars in their eyes, the singing out from Dry Ice and start Fredo or Lulu or Mick Jagger. It reminded me of that.
Yes, I was waiting for Cher to come out. Yeah, I was, and actually, I do love Anita Dobson, and everything you say, I concur. But I have to say, the way she clunked out of the thing, I thought this just feels a little bit amateur now.
There was a touch of the Mrs. Overalls about that, wasn't there? Yeah.
Yes, I'm amazed she got out because she had her shoulder pads, and she's such a thin woman, and she
is the shoulder pads kind of like because she was an 80s star, and the shoulder pads in the 80s were the big thing?
I think they missed the trick though, because given the connection with Stars in Their Eyes, Anita Dobson should have come out of this saying, "Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be the Rani."
Yeah, she could have, and then mind you, if it was Kate O'Mara in the Time and the Rani outfit with those massive shoulder pads, I think she'd have been stuck in the cryogenic chamber.
Like,
I need to get out.
Knocking on the door. Hey, let me out here.
But I think
when the doors open, it did wobble. You're right. It was traditional Doctor Who effect. It pleases me. I like that.
Yes. So there was an element of that, but for visuals and the music, I mean, bless him, Murray Gold. He's so creative. He even did, what is it, Dugadoo?
I loved that. I loved it. I mean, I also like the fact.
Sorry, Paul.
Okay, I was just going to say, I also like the fact that the enjoyable inanity of Dugadoo was juxtaposed with Belinda's more morose outlook. And whilst I enjoyed what Belinda was doing, I also liked the contrast between that little ostrich type creature and that quite catchy little song, whatever it was meant to be.
When Dugadoo came on, my dad was watching it. He's usually flipping through his phone to start laughing at Dugadoo. And then also, I mentioned earlier, I busted up laughing when you see the house flying through the air. In the back, you see the Dugadoo.
I didn't notice that. Somebody else alluded to that.
I started busting up laughing. That poor little Dugadoo.
Okay. One thing on the songs I noticed. Why didn't the TARDIS translate that last song for the Doctor and Belinda.
Good point.
What
Good
happened there? Yeah,
Good point.
I just thought it's odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Murray Gold, he's given us some good songs. You know, in Daleks of Manhattan, there was a great kind of jazzy sequence in the middle. He does do. I mean, I do like Murray Gold overall. I thought what he did with the Eurovision stuff was fantastic. And that song, The Moment, which I'll talk more in Criteria 3, but the actual song was dramatic. The moment.
Beautiful, yeah.
I mean,
the singer, the one who played the singer, she did a good job in her role as the singer with the conflicting of her past and her heritage, and then she finally lets it out and does this beautiful song. And I thought that was very beautiful, man.
What was a bit weird is that the song sung by the Tryon or the Hellion was better than our UK entry this year, and actually.
And also, Tryon, she's from Turlo's home planet, so Turlo's at home watching this thing.
Well, Turlo's going, my gosh, we've had mass immigration. The multiculture in Tryon has certainly changed since Planet of Fire. But yes, overall, I scored that pretty well for this criteria. So here we go again. Ooh. Right, okay, so here we go. Scores on the doors this time. Paul 8, John 4, Michelle 6, Rachel 1, and myself 8. So me and Paul there on 8. You know, if it's got good effects, all the rest. Anyway, I'm not going to keep repeating myself. That's a bit crazy. So anyway, we add that up. That's 27 out of 50. So how is everybody scoring in the thread? We try and be fair, but I think the tasty one is going to come next because, of course, did it engage? Are you happy with the story writing and the resolution? That's going to be the problem, I think, knowing what we're all like. So, John, where do you go on this one?
Look, I was a little surprised, and no, it didn't keep me particularly engaged. There were, I can't deny the fanboy in me feeling a measure of excitement when Susan appeared and when the reveal of the Rani at the end, of course. But that's what it's designed to do. That's why it's there. It's there to give us that thrill, to make us feel we're watching a better product than what we're actually being served up. That's, you know, that's essentially what we're into here. But essentially, Doctor Who at the moment is a program seemingly on borrowed time, and it really needs expert writers, television writers, people who know their stuff. No, they don't have to know Doctor Who. They just have to know how to compose good television. And this person, June O'Dawson, could, again, there was quite heavy-handed messaging to this. It was conflicting at times for me as well, because at the one point, we're meant to, you know, with the Doctor being vicious in his treatment of Kid, are we therefore meant to feel anger with the Doctor doing this, given the background that's been set for this character? We know, and the reason why they're doing this. Oh, there's never an excuse for terrorism. Obviously not. But obviously there was an injustice committed against this race. He obviously had a bad background as well. And that's a character that would have elicited a great deal of sympathy, usually, from the Doctor. So there was a lot of conflicting messages about who it was I was meant to feel sorry for, and I didn't get the whole Horn thing, her disguising those, because this woman had mutilated herself in order to conceal her identity. But along with the whole of the trans thing is happening now, people are doing that for themselves, especially young females, in order to assume a new identity. So again, I was being sent was I being sent a positive message about this? Has she done something that she was going to regret? Something that she should be ashamed of? Something that she should not be condoned for? And yet the same message, a lot of the messaging we get from the people on that side of the divide, if you like, as it is a divide, are very pro children making life-changing decisions about their own bodies. I find that odd. So it was a lot of mixed stuff going on, and eventually, I just noticed these things more than I should do in a program like Doctor Who. I should just be carried along with the story, and eventually, clunk, 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 message, 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 takes you out of the story. So yeah, no, it didn't engage.
It was asserted that the Doctor rejected Kidd's own assertion that he was doing it on the basis of some retribution, and I felt that was a good touch, and it also lent some credence to the way the Doctor was behaving, because he'd seen it all before. His experience, his thousands years experience, is of people who sometimes dissemble about their true intentions. So I thought that was a good moment.
I was interested. Again, it was, when you talk about engagement, I was engaged roughly for 30 minutes. And again, RTD, Juno Dawson, whoever's writing the episode, you've got me for about 2/3 of the episode. And then I start to worry about the quick reset or however we're going to solve it. I have to say, is it MacGuffins? What is it? To watch a 47-minute episode and to see that it just so happened that the Doctor got himself out of space in the same place as the two people who were going to be crucial to him solving all 100,000 people's issues. Oh, wow. My God, this is like a computer game for 5-year-old, that you get all your objects in the same place. Belinda happened to be with a Hellion. And oh my God, isn't it amazing? And we had the same scene almost as Stolen Earth, when, of course, you had the subwave network. And as you know, Rose was trying to tap on the screen and say, oh, there's the Doctor. And who's that? There's Martha, there's Sarah, and there's Captain Jack. And they were all talking to each other. And we had the same blooming scene again. Oh, the Doctor's alive. Ooh. And I thought, oh, for God's sake, it's repeat cycle all the time. So I lose my engagement then. And the mixed messaging thing was a problem to me here. This is supposed to be the great moment. The song contests spirit. She sang the song. It was a lovely song. She finished. All these virtuous people in the audience, all the lovely people of the world, nobody clapped.
Yeah.
And I thought, and it was that gay guy started it. And by the way, can I just say something else? The Doctor didn't lead with any clapping. The Doctor just stared. The Doctor was as passive as on the bus with Rosa. He was useless. So basically, the Doctor wasn't a leader, and it took a gay man to start the clap. And then suddenly everybody followed suit. In other words, we want to emulate people who are followers. Really?
The Doctor categorically shouldn't have been the first person to clap. It should have been left to other people to make that decision. He shouldn't have intervened. So I don't agree with that. I reject that.
Well, what's the point of him getting moralistic and doing speeches if he can't lead or anything? Why doesn't he just shut his face? I don't know what's the point of him.
Well, the two aren't inimical to each other, are they? By all means, he can make speeches, and if they're emotive and if they inspire people, then that's all well and good. But by no means should he have been the first person to clap. Not by any means.
So what's his role? What's his role now in Doctor Who? Is it just to make...
Well, he ably demonstrated his role. He fixed things. He made things better. He improved people's lives in this episode. He gave people greater understanding of each other.
He still looked drop dead gorgeous. That's all I see his role as being.
Well, that might be one aspect. I won't deny it, but that's not all I saw in this episode. That's not all I saw in this episode by any means.
I don't know. There is. I'm going to have to keep saying it because the formula of these 47-minute episodes is they're trying to just do too much in 47 minutes. The colony exploitation angle, no problem at all, but it needs to be worked on slowly, not a speech. But remember, she was also doing a metaphor for the trans debate. So there were two messages going on in one scene. Then you've got the Rani at the end and the Mrs. Flood, and then you've got the Doctor acting different to normal. How much can you pack in 47 minutes? And I think, therefore, it falls off some of that engagement level. Michelle, where do you stand on engagement and resolution?
This was just a difficult episode to figure out what's going on. The messaging and the moral is all over the place. So again, my engagement with it was until the Doctor started torturing people, and that's when it starts going down the wrong end of wrong it. I just can't. As someone else mentioned, is like he can't. In the comments that he's gonna have to rewatch this because he's not sure about the messaging at all. Because this is one where obviously first time going. It's making me think what the writer what was she trying to say with this? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, somebody, I think it was Matrix Lord, said, look, it's not meant to resolve this episode because obviously it's part of a trilogy, so to speak.
Yeah,
But we don't budge our criteria. We judge every episode as it stands separately, because I'm trying to imagine the casual viewer, not the fan who's desperately would watch all Blu-ray in a night. The point is, as a piece of drama, does it stand on its own? That's how I can only judge it that way, because all the rest is fan stuff. And if my mum watched this, would she be happy at the end? And my mum would be absolutely lost.
Yeah, do you know? Again, Brendan, the choices of this episode, it was basically set in 3 rooms. You get the panoply of all the thing, but eventually you end up with these 2 in the control area, the Doctor with his 2 gay best friends, and Belinda with the other 2. So it's very static again, for such a modern, action-packed, big budget show. It reverts to doing what Doctor Who did a lot of, because I had to back in the day, because I didn't have very much in the way of money. And I don't understand that. I know there's a problem with pacing, with writing, with script editing, with show running. I don't know who's responsible for this, but essentially, all those guys, your character there, Freddie Fox, that's a really good character, but he didn't get to interact much with the Doctor or any of the other characters. We didn't get to see him being evil in a traditional Doctor Who sense. I would imagine, children watching this would be aware of the fact that he's doing something bad. But Doctor Who, you need a bit of moustache twirling at times as well.
Yeah. So it's a mishmash, really. And so on resolution, oh, by the way, can I just say the other thing? The dark light becomes a tractor beam, and it just so happens that the man who's an expert at it is in the room the Doctor happens to land in, and he happens to be either married or in a relationship with a medic who can turn a cryogenic chamber and revive 100,000 people in a matter of about a minute when Bucks Fizz played. And then once everybody's thawed out, they can all then watch the Eurovision again. Wow. Easy.
Nobody comes out and just bursts out. It's been funny.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I'm going to have to start script writing because it looks so easy. Honestly, I can make up any old crap. And as long as there's a good pop tune and as long as there's a bit of LGBT agenda, I think I'm on the money. Honestly.
I'll watch it, Brendan. I'll watch it. Not for long, but I will watch it.
Maybe longer than people are watching. Right, so let's have a look at where we stand on this one then. Here we go. So this is when we get to see.
I shouldn't have had that pizza before I got on.
So here we go. These are the scores for the final criteria. Paul 8, John 0, Michelle 4, Rachel 4, and myself 7. I was torn because I wasn't happy about various things, but I was engaged for 2/3. And it felt more Doctor Who for 2/3 than most of them. So it's very hard, this judging in this season, I find. I go so far and then I go, So anyway, the total therefore means out of 50, it got 23. So we now bring it all together. And of course, this episode got 67 out of 150. And that, in the scheme of things, means that this story, if I go big there, you can see how it fits into this whole season. So The Well is still in prime position, followed by Robot Revolution, followed by Interstellar Song Contest, Lucky Day, and then in last place was Lux. So that's
Story in the Engine's last place. That's 43.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. So if you can see the 67, where does that apply here? It's kind of almost on the money with Dot and Bubble. So it's just interesting how it pans out. It's just, so there you go, folks. That was our judgments of the jury. Any final thoughts, John, on what you saw last night or what you saw this morning? I mean, have you got any positivity about where we might end up after 2 more episodes of this season?
No, not really. I just know whatever's being characterized in this iteration of Doctor Who, it isn't the Doctor, and that just means that I disengage from it. I believe for the first time, I didn't think Jodie Whittaker was miscast. I didn't think she was a very good Doctor. I think she was perhaps better scripted, with a better showrunner. She may well have been better. So therefore, I think for the first time, this Doctor Who has been miscast. Ncuti Gatwa is miscast as the Doctor. I don't think he has the acting chops to do this. I think he's a bit of a one-trick wonder in terms of what he does. Also, I think he likes to look nice and he likes to come across as a nice guy. When he did all that sort of stuff regarding the torture and all the rest of it, I said it wasn't the Doctor, and I don't think he carried it off very well. I think it was particularly well acted. So yeah, this issue, there's too many issues with this iteration of Doctor Who. I'm not looking forward to the finale, despite all the little sweeties that Russell Davies is getting to carry us all along, and I can't wait for this to be over.
Would you be hoping, John, there's millions of, I have to say, there's been so many leaks that most of them are true, but would you be hoping then that one of the leaks is true, that we end up with an open-ended regeneration?
Yeah, but it depends on who's going to replace him. It's just going to be more of the same. That doesn't really matter. Doctor Who has to lose Ncuti, absolutely, but one thing, before Ncuti, it has to lose Russell Davies. It really has to lose Russell Davies. We need a proper television professional, not a Doctor Who fan, a proper television professional who assemble a team around themselves and bring this programme back to what it is. Because that back in the old day, Philip Hinchcliffe, John Edington, all this, they weren't fans. They just knew how to make good TV.
Paul, I mean, your context is different to what you're saying in an episode. I understand that, because you're not really happy overall, are you? So
no, indeed.
What are you thinking? You can see probably where we're heading. So what's your vibe about how we'll end this season, and where you want us to be?
I don't like the idea of member berries in principle at all, because the implication is that they are being provided to assuage, and that's precisely what these are being provided for. So when they are provided in abundance, the abundance that we're seeing, it just makes the effect more manifold and even less desirable. There's going to be nothing good about this finale. I'm sure Gatwa's decent performance will continue. I've enjoyed him this season. I feel that he's improved greatly. He's developed a wonderful investigative air, which I think lends itself to playing the Doctor. But that won't be enough to redeem that, neither this series or the previous one. I never wanted Davies back. I've been surprised, and I've been pleasantly surprised by this particular series. But no, I want it gone as much as anybody. Yeah.
Okay, just for George to know, we're not going into spoilers. We're not one of those streamers, really. I'm just saying where we stand from what we've seen since we're reviewing. What's your vibe about how we'll finish? So, Michelle, same question to you.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's going to be like a train wreck at this point where we just can't look away, but you should look away at the same time. I after the way the last season's finale's ending was bungled, I think we're just going to go from one to the other worse. And I think if we see the Daleks next 2 episodes, I think that maybe will confirm that this may be Ncuti's last.
I feel as though it's interesting because Matrix Lauder, somebody's going to be right and somebody's going to be wrong. Like clearly here, because a lot of people
usually my bets are wrong. So whatever it is, I'm going to be, and that's okay.
Well, it's just that a lot of people are saying RTD's been sacked. A lot of people are saying RTD's staying. It's like, whoa, there's nowhere middle ground. And I think we're on stronger footing that Ncuti's left. I think we're on stronger footing there, it seems to me. Mad Mackham, I'm looking forward to cancellation at a time for the character to recover. I don't worry anymore if it's gone for good from the screens. I have enough memories, blah, blah. I know. I'm getting close. You know, I'm getting close to the exit. So, that was another episode. Only 2 to go. My God, I will need a bed at some point. So, everybody, including Rachel, thanks for your time and your scores. That was the sense for you, trying to make sense of that. So, thank you, John, and go and have a nice relax now.
I could go and just the big reveal. It was me who had the hangover.
Was it?
Yeah.
There you go. Do you know,
blame Hugh.
very just shocking. Michelle, obviously you were busy with work and now you're back. And
yes, I am. I'm happy to be back. I miss y'all.
Good to have you. Well, we're going to hit the finale now, Michelle. This is when it gets hot to trot.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for joining us again. And Paul, you know what's good fun, and you know the thread loves this. We all debate. And then,
of course.
God, as I have always said, and you know, John and Michelle know this, I hate echo chambers. But yeah, we have a good, what do you call it in Scotland? A stoush?
A stushy.
Stushy, yes. Good old stushy. It's what we need. But we're all friends here, and we'll be back next week, I hope. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Brendan, for all your hard work.
Cheers, guys. All the best, guys.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Bye-bye.